and understand that continuing to be here, you are giving that acknowledgement that you're okay with that. And so with the recording underway, I will once again welcome everybody to our February membership meeting of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition. Thank you very much for taking time away from whatever it is you could be doing, family, television, fun movies, Netflix and chill, to join us this evening. We hope we've got some great guests, as always, to share with you. My name is Michael Taylor Judd, and I'm the chair of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition. And I will be joined by one of my fellow board members, Kate Wells, who will introduce herself in a few moments, and we will be steering the meeting. Hopefully everyone can see the slides on the screen. Tonight's agenda is full, but not too packed. We'll start out now with welcome and some brief introductions. We'll pause very quickly for the board members to approve previous meeting minutes. If you want to know what's been going on the last several months, we do have a YouTube channel. You can find it by looking up West Seattle Transportation Coalition. And we've cataloged our past meetings with all the different guests we've had, ranging from SDOT's regular updates to Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, who joined us, and various other people that we've had the privilege of engaging in conversation with. Unfortunately, our link is that really ugly link there. So we do encourage you, as we're starting out, once you reach a certain threshold of subscribers, they allow you to choose a much more pleasant looking and marketing type of YouTube link. So we do encourage you, if you check out the YouTube channel, to please click and subscribe. We're not posting tons of videos, so you shouldn't be assaulted by lots of subscription updates from us. And every additional person we get added helps us get closer to that better URL. Once we wrap that up, our first guest tonight, we will have a conversation with the Washington State Department of Transportation, who's going to share with us some quick updates about what they're looking at in terms of upcoming work on the First Avenue Bridge and how some of that's going to affect us. After that, we will go into our usual updates from our friends at the Seattle Department of Transportation. Hopefully they can share a little bit more. We've seen some interesting things out in the media about early data they're seeing about camera enforcement on the lower bridge. Continue to talk, as always, about progress on mobility projects and more. And then later on, we will have a presentation from the folks with West Seattle SkyLink about the possibilities for urban aerial transit to connect West Seattle to the regional rail network, and some of their advocacy for HB 1304, a bill down in the legislature in Olympia. And then depending on if we've got time, we've left open from last month to have some open discussion in the chat to hear from you about what you want to learn about in 2021. And what some of your top concerns are about transportation in West Seattle and City Council District 1. And then, old business, new business, etc. If you are joining us for the first time, briefly, this is our purpose or our vision. We are a peninsula-wide organization working to address transportation and commuting challenges for the nearly 100,000 people who live and work over here on the West Seattle Peninsula. And yes, it is a peninsula where we may feel like we're an island, but we're not. And we do this by securing the support of residents, engaging elected officials, partnering with government agencies, having conversations with them, as we are certainly doing this evening, and engaging with businesses, community organizations, other neighborhood groups and individuals to both educate and collect feedback, as you see tonight with the West Seattle SkyLink group. Our goals are affordable and equitable transportation options, a transportation network that moves people and goods in an environmentally sustainable way, and really investing in transportation infrastructure in ways that match Seattle's growth. And then our priorities for 2021 are continuing to support restoring capacity in the West Seattle Bridge Transportation Corridor while we're undergoing all these detours, advocating for funding maximum mobility while the bridge is closed, supporting Sound Transit 3 light rail planning, and monitoring the big major other than the bridge, the other major project happening right now, which is Delridge Way and Rapid Ride H multimodal project. Kate, introduce yourselves and quickly review Zoom.
Hi, my name's Kate Wells. Welcome. I'm going to be taking care of the question and answer periods, give Michael a little break from talking now and then. And I want to let you know that there are a couple of different ways you can let us know that you have a question. You can either raise your hand, or you can either type your question in the chat and I can read it, or if you just want to let me know that you have a question, I can tell you when it is your turn and you can ask it yourself. So I recommend that you do it that way, just because then you can follow up if you have more questions afterwards. So I'll turn it back to Michael.
All right, thank you, Kate. So introductions. No, we're not going to ask everybody to jump on video and introduce themselves. I will turn on the chat in just a moment. And we ask you to, go over there. We love to know more about you and get to know each other. So share your name, share your pronouns or access needs, maybe the neighborhood that you're a part of. Question for tonight, sort of a lead in to our discussion later, or if you're not able to stay all the way through the meeting, tell us one or two things that you would like to learn about this year, and so we can try and start planning ahead to line up guests and presentations about that information. And if you didn't get a reminder email about tonight's meeting and the folks on our agenda, and you'd like to be added to our WSTC email list, just send a private chat message, and you can just switch in the drop-down window over there. Send a private chat message to my fellow board member, John Wright, and he'll make sure that we get you on there. And with that, let me open up the chat screen there. And folks can get underway there. Thank you, Victoria, already introducing herself. I will keep us moving here quickly to tonight's agenda. We need to approve our previous meeting minutes from January. I think, Kate, did you share them on Slack? I can't remember if I reviewed them this time around or not.
They went out in Slack and email.
Email. All right. Yeah. So hopefully everybody has been better than I was then about checking them out. I would entertain a motion to approve, or if there are any edits that need to be made.
I would approve the minutes.
I'm sorry, board members, and let me also allow you to unmute yourself. I see a hand raised from Martin. Is there, did you want to unmute yourself, Martin, or drop a quick question into the chat window there? Do we have a second to approve minutes? Hello, board members.
I'm not sure if they can unmute.
Are we stuck with
Maybe that's it.
Let me try that again. I will turn it off and turn back on. Folks should be able to. Let's see, are you able to unmute, Deb? All right, well, this could be a problem.
How about
there we go. Yes.
Well, I second the minutes, but I also need you to let me back in.
Second.
All right.
All those, but I see the chat is disabled as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
All right, things are, there we go. All right, let's try that again. Maybe there's some lags here with the Zoom.
Okay, that worked. Thank you.
All right. So, sorry for some bumps there, everyone. Board members, all those in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I guess I'll be recorded as abstaining since I've already admitted that I'm not entirely certain if I read this month's minutes or not. All right, moving on then. I will quickly move us here to our first guest, Tom Pierce, who's a Public Information Officer with the Washington State Department of Transportation. Tom, feel free to, do you need me to share out my screen right now?
Yeah, I'd like to be able to. I've got a map, and then I've got a little video, very short video to include tonight. So.
All right, you should have co-host privileges to share out your screen and take it away.
Okay, let's see. Hopefully, I get the right screen shared here. You all see a map now?
We do.
Okay, very good. So, SR 99 Duwamish River Bridge, First Avenue South Bridge. We know that this is really important to folks all over, especially in West Seattle and with the West Seattle Bridge closed. We've been working with SDOT for several months on this as we knew we needed to come in and do some work. So we wanted to work with SDOT, make sure that we're all on the same page and working together. So we do need to work on the bridge, but it is safe. Doing the work now reduces the chance that we might have to do emergency repairs later. And of course, you know, that could cause some real headaches. So little headaches now to avoid the big headaches later. We're going to start with closures on March 5th. And here's what we have scheduled. We're going to have 2 full closures, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., March 5th and 6th. That is Friday and Saturday. Well, a week from Friday and Saturday. After that, starting on noon on March 10th through noon on March 15th, we're going to have 2 lanes of the bridge closed, which will leave 2 lanes open for traffic. And then we'll have 2 more full closures once we complete those 2 lane closures, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. on March 14th and 15th. So that's a Sunday night and a Monday night. And so that's what people will see. What we're really asking folks to do is to plan ahead. We want people to use alternative routes. If everybody tries to use this bridge, use the First Avenue South Bridge when we have these lane reductions, we're going to see big backups. If people can use alternate routes, adjust the times they travel, that could really help. Excuse me, sorry, I'm gonna have a drink here. Throat's been acting up lately. So the alternative routes that we have, you can see on the map here. We have the East Marginal Way South Bridge. We've got Tukwila International Boulevard. I-5 is open for a lot, unless you're at the very south end of your peninsula. I-5 may not be a great choice, but you know, if you're coming around to Burien or something, or from Burien, that area, you know, then that could be a good choice for you. The South Park Bridge also is open. On the nights that we have the full closure, the Lower Spokane Street Bridge is open some very late. I believe, well, Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. So that will be available as well. But of course, just be careful if you choose to use that bridge, because of course they are doing enforcement. So those are some options that we have. And that's the
Heather's
closure.
showing that the closure is actually 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So people get an extra hour there at night to cross the lower bridge.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. So just like to go into a little bit about what we're doing on the bridge. We need to go in and replace some pads, some concrete. Well, actually they're made of a grout kind of pad that carries the weight of the girders on the bridge. We put these pads on top of the beams so that as they wear, we're actually wearing on a pad. We're not actually wearing into the beam itself. which just helps make the bridge last a whole lot longer without major repairs. What we're seeing right now is these, I'm gonna try and get real tricky here. You can see where the girder sits on top, and you can see there's a little bit of motion here where it lifts off the pad and then comes back down. This shows you exactly what we're seeing underneath the bridge. So what we're going to do is we're going to jack the bridge up just a little bit, which will give us access. It'll take the girders off of the pad, and then it will, sorry, trying to do too many things at once here. It'll take the girders off the pads. It'll allow us to get in there, clean them up, put in the new pads. We also have some steel repair that we need to do. That's going to require taking out some concrete from the bridge deck. So that'll give us access to get in there, do the steel. Once we get that taken care of, I'm sorry, hang on. I'm on call for DOT this week. So I'm just going to hang up on him. I'll get back to him. So we need to remove the concrete, and then we'll get in, we'll do the work on the steel, and then we'll pour the concrete back. You're going to see some time out there where it doesn't look like we're doing anything. But that's just because the concrete is curing, and we need to let it sit so that it stabilizes. So.
They really want to talk to you.
Come on. So anyway, that's basically what I have. And so I don't know how to unshare my screen at this point. Is that it? No, that's just moving stuff around there. There we go. Let's
There you
unshare.
go. I took care of it.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. So that's what's going on with the bridge. That's the situation with people being able to get around. The bridge will be open. People are going to be able to get where they need to go. They just need to plan ahead. That's kind of our biggest message. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
All right. I will give folks the opportunity to, you should be able to unmute yourselves if needed, or if you feel free to, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to talk, or drop something into the chat window, and Kate will be able to grab your question there.
Well, I don't see anything yet, but I had a question. I assume this is something pretty routine that's done regularly with bridges.
Well, fortunately, we don't have to do work like this, the work itself, that often. We inspect our bridges at least every 2 years. Some bridges we inspect them every year. And we saw these pads starting to wear out a couple of years ago, so we've kept an eye on them. And they're to the point now where we need to go in and do some work on them. So we would have liked these bearing pads to last a lot longer, but sometimes, they, for whatever reason, they don't.
Okay. There is one question in the chat now, but I think it's more for Heather Marks, so maybe we can grab that one later. Deb, you've got your hand raised.
Hey there. Thanks for your presentation. I just want to ask, since this, for West Seattle, the closure of anything is pretty drastic, and we probably take it much more seriously, angrily, miserably than any other community in the city of Seattle. So because we're so grumpy about this closure, I have to ask the question, since you watched this situation worsen over a few years, maybe there's two questions. There's no way you can put this off until the high bridge is open. It would be my first question. And my second question is, do you have any other bridges that you're monitoring and would like to maybe eventually deal with. Can you disclose what those would be, especially if they're around West Seattle? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you for the questions. Putting it off, that starts to get tricky because the bridge has reached a point where we feel like we need to do this work. If we delay longer, then it's just going to keep getting worse, especially when we're looking at a situation with the West Seattle Bridge. It's going to be, you know, I don't know exactly how long, but we're hearing 2022 at least. So, you know, letting this go for another year, we could start to see enough damage that we might just have to say, no, we can't, you know, we could try putting it off, but if it fails, we could have to do a much longer closure. You know, right now it's relatively easy because the beam itself is in good shape. And that's really the big thing. But if we damage that beam, then it's going to be a big deal because we have to replace it. And replacing a beam is a major operation. So putting it off, not really. We've kind of held off on this. I mean, hindsight's 2020. I mean, you know, if we had known that there was going to be an issue with the West Seattle Bridge, you know, maybe a couple of years ago, we could have said, well, it's just starting. Let's go ahead and fix it now because we know that this is going to happen. We don't know. We didn't know. So, you know, can't really do that. As far as others that we're monitoring, we're looking at, there's nothing that really, we're not looking at any bridges that really affect West Seattle right now. We're, like I say, we inspect bridges every couple of years, at least. One big project we do have coming is the I-5 Ship Canal Bridge. We're going to be redecking that in the next couple of years. And that's going to be a big deal for people who use I-5. So that's kind of what we have for, you know, the big bridge projects that we have coming. We do have on I-5, one thing that's interesting about I-5 through Seattle is people don't realize that's basically a lot of that is a bridge. We do have a project that's going to start this year where we're going to be replacing expansion joints and repaving about 1.25 miles between the West Seattle Bridge and I-90. Actually, it's between I-90 and the West Seattle Bridge. It's southbound that we're doing the work. The way DOT names its projects, it's always from south to north, even if the traffic is going from north to south. So goofy little inside thing there. So anyway, we're going to be doing that. That's going to require, that's going to take a couple of years because we need 16 weekends where we're going to reduce I-5 to 2 lanes southbound between I-90 and West Seattle, or the West Seattle Bridge. So those are, but that's a project that's on the books. We've been working on that one for years, and here we go. We're getting ready to kick it off.
Well, thank you for mentioning those. Some of us have definitely been aware of that for a while, and the fact that I-5 is mostly a bridge through downtown. So hopefully more people start to pay attention and aren't surprised when that happens. I see one of our board members dropped a question in the chat that I want to raise, and I apologize, Tom, if I missed this detail while you were talking. But Victoria says these full closures will have a significant impact for night shift workers driving from West Seattle. How much time is it expected to add to their commutes? And did I miss, is this like the last time we had some closures on the First Avenue Bridge where when it happens as a full closure, it's at the times that folks are able to access the lower bridge or not?
That's what we've worked with SDOT on for this project. So people will have access to the lower bridge on those nights that we have the overnight full closures. And those are 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. You know, and well, 2 of them are 9 to 6, 2 of them are 9 to 5 because they're on weekday. The second 2 are weekday mornings. So we did limit a little bit how late our contractor could go with those. So people will be able to use that. And we chose these times, of course, because it is simply the time when there's the least amount of traffic on the bridge.
All right. I see a couple of more questions coming in there. A lot of them are sort of more SDOT oriented, so I think we will hold those for our SDOT folks. If you don't have anything else to share, Tom, we'd love to have you stick around a little bit, but we also know folks have other things to do.
Well, I appreciate you having me tonight. I'll tell you what, anybody who wants to reach out to me, Michael does have my email address, but it's pretty easy too. It's tom.pierce, and it's Pearce at wsdot.wa.gov.
And I just dropped that over there in the chat window for folks.
Hey, I'm going to, Michael, this is Deb. I just want to say one more thing to say, Tom, thank you, WashDOT. There is a, I can sign up for WashDOT weekly report, and it comes to my email box, and I appreciate that weekly they are covering the West Seattle Bridge in that report. So I just wanted to say, all right, from WSTC and everybody in West Seattle, big thank you for having that listed in the local what's going on with WashDOT. So much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. So we will move on to our next guests who are very familiar, getting very familiar, hopefully, to everybody. We've got Heather Marks joining us, who's Director of Downtown Mobility with SDOT. Madison Lincolnmeyer, Communications Lead, who will be hanging out in the background, running slides as usual. And we've got Bradley Topol back with us, who is a project manager on West Marginal Way, who will be available to back Heather up and answer some questions for everyone. And so, Madison, I assume you are ready to share slides. So I will stop sharing and let you take over. Welcome back, Heather. We hope you liked escaping tough questions from a couple of our board members last month, but you're welcome back, and I'm sure they'll toss them at you again.
I'm very happy to be here as usual. Thank you so much for inviting us. It's always a pleasure to come and talk to you and share what's going on with the bridge and answer your questions the best I can. I want to give some thanks to Madison, who always makes things a lot easier for me and produces a lot of the materials that you see. And thank you also to Brad Topol, who is here to answer specifically questions about West Marginal Way. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Tonight, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Specifically, I want to talk to you about West Marginal Way and where we are with that project, and also talk about low bridge access, everyone's favorite topic. Next slide, please. So West Marginal Way is a project that we have been pondering to make it safer and more accessible for all users. Since the High Bridge closure, everybody knows that the West Marginal Way Southwest has become an even more essential connection for freight, people, and business. And folks who probably never used West Marginal Way are now using it regularly. Our goal, of course, is to keep all users of the roadway moving predictably and safely. As you know, West Marginal Way is home to the Duwamish Longhouse and Cultural Center. It is a major truck street as well as a heavy haul route. And there's also a significant gap in the bicycle network between West Seattle, Georgetown, and South Park. Next slide, please. So I wasn't there. I was taking vacation, which wasn't as restful as I had hoped. But at that February 18th public meeting, we had about 80 community members attending, and we shared information about the confirmed 2021 construction projects, including the new signal and crosswalk at the Duwamish Longhouse and Walkway. We heard support for the protected bike lane proposal, and we heard opposition to the protected bike lane proposal. preferences included installing the bike lane in 2021 or waiting to install it after the high bridge opens. So I assure you, I am not joking about this. The feedback that we had was just all over the map. Next slide, please. So our next step is we have a survey that's still open for businesses who are located on West Marginal Way. We are doing one-on-one follow-ups with businesses in the next couple of weeks. I think Bradley is taking point on that. In March, the community input will be summarized and shared out with us at SDOT, and we'll also reflect that back to the community. We want to make sure that there's an authentic feedback loop there, and make sure that we are reflecting it correctly what we heard. We expect that there will be a decision made at SDOT in April. And of course, we're going to run that by the mayor's office. Next slide, please. So the low bridge, as I think everyone knows, low bridge has been access restricted since the high bridge was closed to traffic last year. We wanted to make sure that we could have free access for emergency vehicles. We felt that during a global pandemic that was particularly important. The low bridge can carry about 20,000 cars a day compared to the 100,000 cars a day that the high bridge was carrying. I think it's very clear that the demand for access far, far exceeds the limited space that we had. And so we've had to make very difficult and unpleasant choices. And so we've prioritized people who are using transit, people who are driving trucks, and people who are driving emergency vehicles for that low bridge use. Photo enforcement began on January 11th. And if you use the low bridge without permission to do so, you will get a $75 ticket. Next slide, please. So over time, since the very beginning, we have made some adjustments into who can use the low bridge as we understand more about what access is available. So obviously emergency vehicles can use the low bridge, transit, including King County Metro buses and school buses, freight vehicles that are 100,000 pounds gross vehicle weight, people who are walking, rolling, using electric foot scooters or scooter share device or biking. Employer shuttles are allowed to use that low bridge. Van pools can use the low bridge. And authorized, pre-authorized vehicles, which at this point include some small businesses who have a truck is a 100,000 pound gross vehicle weight vehicle. That is what a truck is. So small businesses in West Seattle.
Sorry, Heather, is that 100,000 or is that 10,000? Because the slide says 10,000.
10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. It's a big, it's not even that big. It's a moderately sized truck. An Amazon transit van that delivers packages is about 9,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. So they don't get to use the low bridge, but a UPS box truck is 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. They do get to use the low bridge. So pre-authorized vehicles at this point include workers, ILWU workers who are contractually obligated to cross that low bridge to Terminal 5. That's not relevant right now, but it often is. In addition, small businesses in a pilot project through both the Chamber of Commerce and the Junction BIA. And that's mostly retail stores and restaurants that have, if the deliveries that they get don't allow them to open up their business, they can use the low bridge to access that. Also, maritime businesses that are proximate to the low bridge and require access so that ships can keep going and taking food to Southeast Alaska. Right now, medical workers who are on call can use the low bridge. They will get a citation, but they can have the citation waived by using a declaration of non-responsibility. Everyone who's in that classification understands what that is. At least that's what we're given to understand. We are working toward a system where medical personnel who are on call, where we'll collect their license plate so they won't have to go through that second tidbit. And also everyone can use it between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. And so I think there was a question somewhere, or an observation that closures overnight for the First Avenue South Bridge were impactful for folks who work overnight. Fortunately, we've worked with WashDOT to time those closures so that you'll be able to use the low bridge. So when they have it, the First Avenue South Bridge closed overnight, you'll be able to use the low bridge. It's the time matches up. Okay, you cannot use the low bridge if you are a taxi or ride-hail vehicle, and personal vehicles, including motorcycles, during the day cannot use the low bridge. Next slide, please. We anticipate being able to temporarily expand access to the low bridge because Terminal 5, that project is not moving forward until the beginning of 2020. And so we're going to have some significant extra space on the bridge that we can allocate. We are working hard to do that in an equitable way. And we also want everybody to understand that as soon as Terminal 5 opens, we're going to have to take that access back. So we're hesitant, right? It doesn't work well when we do that. Beginning of 2022. Sorry, you guys. My brain. SDOT is counter to what a Como TV story said. SDOT is the final decision maker on who has access and who doesn't. That authority is granted to us through the Seattle Municipal Code and the RCW. In order to equitably allocate this additional temporary access, we're conducting some outreach to understand the access needs of more user groups, including all West Seattle-based businesses with a focus on Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned small businesses, on-call healthcare workers, and people seeking healthcare treatments. In addition, I understand that there's someone here tonight who works on Harbor Island. That's another group that we're investigating. We need to figure out how many people that is so that we don't over-allocate space on the low bridge. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm really looking forward. They did issue a retraction. That is correct. Thank you. Looking forward to answering your questions.
All right. Well, I know we've got a lot there in the chat that hopefully Kate can start to go back and review. I'm going to grab the screen back for a moment here. Because while Kate's doing that, we had a question that was sent in to us from one of our members, and I wanted to make sure to get that in. Beth sent us an email. She said she wouldn't be able to attend the meeting, but she's been wanting to ask you, SDOT, about the east-west stoplight timings on Roxbury at 15th, 16th, and 17th. She says it appears the timing has changed in the last couple of weeks and that traffic really builds up as cars have to stop for a good length of time at the next light, causing a traffic backup. She thinks it seems worse during the westbound evening commute. And she acknowledges that maybe this isn't the highest priority problem right now, but you know, is this something that I could ask you about? And, you know, we love when members get things into us ahead of time. So this is the benefits when you think ahead about our guests and you get those things in ahead of time.
So I wish I could answer that right off the top of my head, but I can't. One of the things that Madison does is she notes these questions that I don't have a ready answer to. And so we will get back to you and to Beth with an answer to that question. I haven't noticed that, but I don't usually drive on Roxbury during commute time. So
We appreciate it. I'll forward her email over to you guys so you can respond directly to her.
Okay, thank you very much.
What do we got queued up, Kate?
All right, I'm going to give the quick version of some of these. So I'm paraphrasing. Can the low bridge hours be expanded?
Not at this point. We are paying very careful attention to the volume of traffic on the bridge, and we track that every day and over time. We are considering right now expanding access all the way until 6 a.m. But with the additional access that we're planning to provide with those groups that I talked about earlier, we want to make sure that things don't get out of balance. Also, I just want to note that things get really backed up in the times just around those two, that 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. And so we don't want to be too close to the times when that bridge is already full and freight.
Okay. When will?
Yes, we are considering it. We're looking at the data.
Okay. When will the high bridge be repaired?
We will have our 30% scope, schedule, and budget baseline in the next couple of weeks. Right now, based on what we know, we think that the repairs will be completed in mid-2022. And we are working on a plan. It's not going to be a situation where the contractors drop tools and we open the floodgates. We need to introduce traffic back to the bridge in a way that's going to be safe for the structure and that doesn't put people at risk. And so we are working with the team to see if we can come up with a plan that's going to do that in a way that won't put anybody at risk. It's not going to take us, months and months. We'll still be there in mid-2022.
Okay. Can the high bridge carry ambulances and have buses and trucks use West Marginal and have cars use the low bridge?
No, there are holes in the deck.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I've got a bunch of new messages here. Let's see, Mark says SDOT needs to expedite the repair of the West Seattle Bridge before T5 is operating.
We are doing everything we can to expedite repair.
Okay.
Everything within safety, good sense, and the law.
Do you, Sam Zimbabwe, Lisa Herbold, et cetera, have exemptions to use the low bridge?
Of course not.
Let's see. One of our members asked if she can get her van designated as a van pool van when she drives her and several other kids to school.
No, that's a good question. No, it needs to be a Metro van pool. They are offering though, and maybe Madison, maybe if you have details about this, you can put it in the chat. But actually right now, Metro is offering a discount on their van pool. And so now's a really good time to start a van pool if you need to start one up. And so we can, if Madison doesn't have that information off the top of her head, we will forgive her for that and send it in to you, Kate and Michael, and you can maybe distribute it to your folks.
Okay. Is the low bridge showing any additional wear and tear due to the increase in flow?
No, it isn't. You all may remember that last year, it all kind of ran together, but I think it was probably spring or summertime. We were completing a load rating process for the low bridge to compare its performance to some new standards that came out from the federal government, and found that it didn't meet those new higher standards. We were able to address that through some administrative changes. So we lowered the speed limit and we disallowed some of the very largest over legal vehicles from using the low bridge. Oh, thanks, Madison. One of the things we could have done is just load posted it, which would have meant that no freight could get to Harbor Island or to Terminal 5. So we did not do that. But as part of the contract that is going to fix the high bridge, we're also going to do some strengthening work on the low bridge. So it should be good to go for 4 years to come. It's a good question.
Okay. Why not allow motorcycles? And also, why is it going to take so long to repair the high level bridge?
There is a really, really good answer to that motorcycle question that I cannot call up in my brain right now, but we will send that to you. It has to do with the bubble of space around motorcycles, and that in stop and go situations, our traffic engineers just feel like it's not safe. So there's that. And why is it going to take so long to repair the high bridge? Well, bridges are pretty complicated, and we have to design it. And we have to ensure that we have a repair that is gonna last into the future. I will say that, like I said, we're just about at 30% design. At the beginning of March, we are going to go out to procure the contractor that will do the repairs, and they will be with us through 60 and 90% design. So we'll have a lot more predictability in the schedule and in the budget. So, we're absolutely making progress every single day. And I assure you, not only as the program director, but as a resident of West Seattle, I would really love to have this done sooner. But we have to think about lots of different kinds of things, including the safety of people who cross that bridge. I don't think anybody is interested in a catastrophic failure of the West Seattle Bridge. And that's one of the things that we have to worry about if we just allow live load traffic to go with something that isn't quite designed. Thank you.
Okay, Deb, why don't you pop in here now?
Yes, and you do have a few others in there, Kate, but I know you know that. Heather, the T5, I learned, maybe I should have paid attention, but I just learned. So T5 has a partial opening and then a full opening. And how does that, and there's maybe a year in between. Can you say how that will influence anything for the high and low bridge?
So I don't know whether you're reading the latest information, Deb.
Maybe from last week, I can't remember.
Yeah, what I do know is that they were planning to open T5 partially in like June. Yeah. And then we were going to open it fully in 2022, but they ran into, there were some problems with the cranes. Okay. There were some problems with the construction. Okay. And so the whole opening has just had to have been moved out to January 2022. And so since 2022 is, almost a year away, we didn't feel like we could be in a position where we were reserving that access for so long. Right. So we want to open up the low bridge, but everyone needs to be very clear that we're going to have to take that back.
Obviously, yes, indeed. Thank you for that clarification.
You're so welcome. Mm-hmm.
All right. How did the bridge and its cracks respond to the recent cold temperatures?
Oh my God, it responded great. We're so happy. We're so happy. It is and by great, I mean in accordance to the, with the model. So it's in alignment with what the model said would happen. So we're really happy about that. And what that means is the stabilization work that we do which was phase 1 of the repair, is working well. And that phase 2, like we're on the right track for our design of phase 2. So good news. Snow is very heavy. No, it is. So having like all that snow on top of the bridge simulated, not anything like full live load, but it simulated some additional load and it responded just the way we thought it would. So that's good news.
Great.
We take the good news where we can get it.
We've seen many neighbors leave our community because of the bridge closure. How does SDOT feel about the impact the crisis has brought on our community?
Well, SDOT's an agency, and so it made up of people. And so I'm sure that the people of SDOT are sad. I mean, no one is enjoying this. We're not happy to have our most important and biggest piece of infrastructure fail. I do want to point out that it wasn't a failure due to lack of maintenance. It was a failure due to flaws in the design process that was used, and the manuals that showed us how to build the bridge way back in the 80s. I wasn't even that young. We feel terrible. But you can only feel so terrible about something that like a human didn't cause. These are, materials that are responding to forces in the world. And so what we are focused on right now is just moving forward and fixing the bridge and getting people back on track as quickly as we can.
Okay, I don't see much more. There's some discussion, but not a lot more questions in here. So
Check out that discussion in the chat right now. I'm going to offer a quick bit of information. We had an earlier question about whether some of our city officials might have exemptions. And I know a common comment we hear out in the community of folks saying that no one's paying attention to this. It's not a high level concern. And so I just thought I'd take an opportunity to remind some folks, if they don't know, just how many people are affected by this. If you're concerned that it's just us regular people, we have 3 city council members who all live over here, and their families are dealing with this. We have the county executive who lives over here. We have, as well as a congresswoman who's over here, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, who was with us, as I said, last year, and talked about the fact that she and her family are intimately familiar with dealing with this detour. And that's part of what she can speak to, hopefully on our behalf in DC, as we hopefully get an infrastructure bill out of the new administration. And we have I guess we're down. A couple people have left, so they're still here, but they're no longer city department heads. But at one point, we had 3 city department heads over here. And I know we have a number of other city, county, and statewide agency folks who are all over here. So West Seattle is a big draw for lots of people who enjoy community just like the rest of us. And I can definitely tell you that when we have conversations with them, they're all intimately familiar with the frustrations that each of us are facing in our travels and commutes as well.
We brief the congressional delegation once a month, and they are all following this very carefully. We also brief the city council client group, particularly Councilmember Herbold and Transportation Committee Chair Peterson twice a month. And we keep, and I brief the mayor just about once a week. So everybody is very, very aware of what's happening. We are absolutely working as fast as we can in accordance with good sense. And we need to make sure that the repair that we conduct is not going to result in another failed bridge. And so I think we have to be really careful. And so we're moving as fast as we can in accordance with that.
Kate, I'm just saying that
Yes.
Andrew appears to have questions. You probably saw that.
Yes, I thought that they were answered because Harbor Island commuters are being considered as low bridge users.
They are. We're trying to gather information about how many Harbor Island workers live in West Seattle, and because we have to there's only so much space on the low bridge, and so when we say yes to a class of people, we need to understand how many that is, so that we can make sure we don't oversubscribe the very. It's just a 2-lane bridge. It's very small, so we don't want to oversubscribe.
The bridge failed very early in its life. How confident are you that the same mistakes aren't being repeated?
You know, that's a really good question. So, I'm not laughing because it's funny. Are you guys ready to nerd out for just a second? Okay.
Yes.
We love to nerd out.
So here are my arms are two piers, right?
Everyone do this.
Everyone do this. Okay. And then on top of the two arms is the deck of the bridge, right? So today, when we design a bridge like this, we would include post tensioning, which is steel rope that holds the bridge in compression, right? Because concrete has a lot of compressive strength, right? Up and down, but it doesn't have really good tensile, the shear strength, right? It wants to fall apart. It doesn't really want to fall apart just like that. Brad's an engineer and he's like, oh my God, Heather. So the post tensioning is steel rope that holds the concrete of the bridge in compression so that it doesn't, so that gravity doesn't act on it and it falls down, right? So back in the day, they only did post tensioning for sort of the middle part of the span. And so if you're on the low bridge on your bike or your feet, and because you wouldn't stop your car, of course, and you look up, you can see giant sets of bolts that are sort of halfway on either side. And so that's where the cracks were, right? So that's where the post tensioning stops. So what we're doing is we're adding external to the concrete, not external to the bridge, post tensioning, all the way from this pier to this pier, which just like in your mind feels like that makes a little bit more sense. So do we know that it's going to work? I mean, we thought the other bridge was pretty good, but we have some thought from our engineers of record at WSP. They expect that there's an 84% chance that the bridge will live out its full life, its 40-year life, and even greater chance that it will last, a little shorter than that. One of the things that people are that we're also working on is some long-range plans for how we will how we'll replace the bridge when we eventually need to do that. And so we're trying to think forward while we're doing this short-term repair.
All right, we've probably got time for one more question. And I want to make sure Andrew has been lighten up the chat there. But he asked a question that I've heard in a couple other places, and I'm wondering if you can clarify, Heather. Is there currently any planning that when the high bridge reopens, that restrictions would continue on the lower bridge?
No. We would not continue restrictions on the lower bridge. When the high bridge is fully open, we will allow full access to the low bridge just as we would. Just as we had, before all this happened.
All right. I'm going to keep us moving along. Again, if folks have additional questions that they wanted to send in to the team or comments about how project is addressing, what's the email address that they can send to again?
Madison's going to type that in, or Heather's going to type that.
Thank you, Madison. So for folks who might be on a phone or have access needs, that's West Seattle Bridge, all one word, at seattle.gov, G-O-V. If there, I think we're ready to move on. Sorry, we've got a full agenda. Oh, and Madison shared a phone number as well. Thank you, Madison. For folks who need a phone number, that's 206-400-7511. And then as always, we hope, Heather, Madison, Brad, and or some of your other colleagues will join us again next month for the latest updates.
Thanks for coming back.
Always a pleasure.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
So, oops. As always, I love to slip little ads in here. So here is my ad on behalf of one of our other agency partners who hasn't been with us in a while. For folks who aren't on various email lists or reading the blog or some of the other posts that it's getting out into the community, King County Metro is seeking community input right now through what they call the Route to Recovery survey. And what that means is, they're really starting to get some serious planning underway for what does it look like to ramp up bus service as we begin to come out of this pandemic. And so they've got some specific questions they're asking folks. That survey is available not just in English, but Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, and Arabic. As a big proponent of language access, this thrills me to no end. So kudos to Metro. And they're asking folks to get to that by March 8th. I apologize, there's a very long web address down there at the bottom. That does reference a February 8th blog post on the King County Metro blog. As far as I could tell, that was the best way to get there, where there are then separate links to the survey in each of those 6 languages. So I imagine you could also do a Google search right now for King County Metro Route to Recovery survey. But we do definitely want to get people to check that out, let them know information, and get as many comments and responses as we can, so that they will do their best to serve us. Moving along, our final guest this evening, we are going to have a conversation with West Seattle SkyLink about the possibilities for using urban aerial transit to connect West Seattle to the regional rail network and advocating for HB 1304 in Olympia. Hopefully they'll chat a little bit about what that bill is. I hope Martin is with us. I may have missed when he joined. I did see that both Joyce and Dennis are here as well. So I'm not sure who's going to be taking the lead,
yeah, if you could pass me on
well, there's Martin.
The share screen.
Yes. Give me just a moment here. There we go, Martin. You should be able to take control here.
All right. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Many people might have heard about West Seattle SkyLink. We have been working with neighborhood groups, with officials, many other transit-oriented groups to think about an alternative as the prospects for a link light rail connection to West Seattle seem to get pushed out. And we want to focus on providing the same reliable high frequency transit connection, or an even better connection as the light rail was supposed to do for Sound Transit 3. And we want to do that even earlier than Sound Transit 3 promised, now that the link connection, which was originally scheduled for to connect to bring us to the stadium in 2030 and now 2031, and today we just had a Sound Transit meeting, a board meeting, where they talked about how to address the $11.5 billion shortfall they have by pushing out all those schedules anywhere between 2 years and 2 years and 8 years. And then the plan was to connect with downtown in 2035. Again, that might get pushed out by 2 to 8 years further. Now, we believe that a gondola could be built for about 1/10 of the cost, and therefore save Sound Transit at least $2 billion, which could be used for other Sound Transit 3 projects. And I mean, Sound Transit talked about their plans last month to the committee. I don't know whether you had a chance to look at the details they put up on their website now in terms of different alignments and the impact to the neighborhood. With a gondola, we hope to have little or no displacement of houses in the Delridge, Avalon areas, whereas the various alignment with the light rail have a lot of impact. But let me drill down into some of the detail here. So our plan is to serve the same stations as planned with light rail. So from the junction, and we would get closer to the junction to Avalon and the Delridge Bridge, and then to Soto, but the gondola would serve those and ultimately reach International District, serve the same stations, but more direct, because a gondola can fly above various obstacles, like Pigeon Point Ridge, rather than having to get around them. Now, urban aerial systems have been implemented in many places throughout the world, as you can see on that map. The German government last year announced that they are studying it as a standard transit technology option based on its superior sustainability and affordability. The Bavarian government even published an urban gondola implementation guide to speed up those projects. In the US, aerial systems have mostly been used for recreational purposes, but now they are beginning to be used or considered for urban applications in major US and Canadian metropolitan areas. You might have seen the one in Portland or New York. But now Vancouver, BC is planning one for Burnaby Mountain. Los Angeles is planning one for the Olympics. Oakland, Miami, Mexico City has been rolling out multiple lines as they provide reliable high-frequency transit without reliance on crowded roadways and bridges. Exactly what we need in West Seattle. So when Sound Transit looked at various transit technologies in 2014, they already deemed gondolas appropriate for local or off-spine purposes. We believe gondolas could not only be more prudent technology for West Seattle, but in the future might become a key technology for both Metro and Sound Transit to connect the link spine to more neighborhoods, expand the walkshed, and bring high-frequency transit to more urban centers more quickly, prudently, and with less disruption. To show you how that might look like, let me take you to London. They don't have the river, the Duvarnish River, but they do have the River Thames. Cabins circle on a wire continuously. Every 20 seconds, another cabin arrives and moves off the wire so that it can slow down for people to unload and others to board one of the cabins. Everybody has a quiet ride with a great view. To stay clear of the river traffic, Very high towers were used. For the Duwamish, we would not need to build them quite as high. A gondola station is typically much smaller than a light rail station. Some systems can carry up to 6,000 people an hour. It might include an escalator or elevator for people with disabilities or a stroller or a bike. Call buttons and a security camera may be included with the cabin so that operating personnel can monitor safety. The main components of a gondola are standardized and get to the construction site pre-assembled. That keeps cost to about 1/10 of an elevated line. Lines are usually built in less than 2 years. Gondola systems can get operated by the manufacturer and often generate a profit. They provide the most affordable technology to provide high frequency, reliable, and sustainable transit. The towers are installed by a crane or helicopter with little disruption to the neighborhood. As they don't need to clear the guideway corridor, the carbon footprint is low. As the cabins are lightweight and powered by a central electric motor, which can use clean energy, a gondola does not generate any emissions and is even more efficient than electric buses or light rail. Gondola technology is much better suited for our hilly terrain and waterways. It can zip right above houses, traffic, and other obstacles while requiring just a few small towers. This means less displacement and property acquisitions, and it speeds up permitting. Going over Pigeon Point Ridge also minimizes interference with the port and the steel plant and stays out of the way of the West Seattle Bridge repair and maintenance activities. The stations are far smaller. In fact, let me show you a rendering of what it might look like. So as you can see, the light rail might stop right underneath. You can take the elevator up to the level and enter any of the waiting cabins, and off you go into towards downtown. Or you arrive on a bus, take the escalator up and get on one of the waiting cabins. Let's compare the two technologies side by side. While light rail can handle more people, a gondola can still handle more than the 27,000 rides Sound Transit expects for 2040. But building a light rail is about 10 times as expensive than a gondola and far more disruptive, as you need to clear a path and build an elevated track, big stations, and it would require a separate Duwamish bridge. For a gondola, you just need a few towers to run a line. With the current budget crunch, the link construction schedule will get pushed out, while a gondola could be operational in 2025. With a more prudent gondola, Sound Transit could keep more Sound Transit 3 projects on schedule. While light rail allows for higher maximum speed, you may have to wait for the next train, while a gondola can run more direct and runs continuously. You may actually arrive at your destination earlier. Gondolas have zero emissions, low power consumption, and construction needs very little concrete, which helps to meet the state's commitment to carbon reduction and more sustainable transportation. Gondolas are extremely efficient to operate. In fact, most urban gondolas operate at a profit. Instead of building up gondola expertise, Sound Transit could outsource the operation to the gondola manufacturer. Now, if the light rail gets pushed out further, we will have to make do with buses unless we deploy a gondola soon. Now, what does that mean it does mean that we would have to, it means a gondola provides much higher frequency and much more predictable and reliable connection than buses, which get delayed by traffic lights, by pedestrians walking across the road, bikes, delivery trucks. Yeah, the FedEx truck might get in the way, or accidents, or snow and ice, as we experienced a couple of weeks ago, where buses had to run on snow routes. Gondolas don't. Because gondolas run on a separate roadway, they are not only more reliable, but also safer, because there's no interference from any other traffic, and therefore less accidents. And that's the city's goal with the Vision Zero. It's also a very affordable and efficient technology, and it ultimately reduces the cost to serve West Seattle for the city or for Sound Transit, because it doesn't require a separate operations and maintenance facility, and operation, as I mentioned, could be outsourced. Buses require a lot of deadheading, meaning they need to drive empty to where they are necessary, or come back to the maintenance space at night. Or on a commuter, they might only carry passengers one direction in the morning or in the evening, and in the other direction they are empty. None of that applies to a gondola, and so it is a more efficient system and a more sustainable system too. It has very low power consumption, and it does not generate any particular, it doesn't generate any particulate matter, meaning it doesn't emit any abrasions from brakes and the tires, which then have impact on salmon and people's allergies and asthma. Even electric buses, still this applies, whereas gondola does not have any of this. And it does not provide wear and tear on the road and bridges. And it doesn't require separate lanes either, which means we have more space for example, to add bike lanes. So that's in a nutshell what we are proposing. And so I'm opening up for further questions.
All right, I've got one in the chat so far. What happens in the event of a regional power outage? Oh, and is it subject to brief closure during high winds?
Okay, power, that motor usually has a backup power, so it can continue to run even if the local power does not provide power. On wind, depending on the technology, gondola systems can handle up to 70 miles per hour. And that takes care of any weather conditions we've seen in Seattle, except a few hours in really, really bad storms where you may not want to go out in the first place.
I can add that in the 25,500 days since 1950, there have only been 6 days with winds of 65 miles an hour. So basically 25,494 days have been just fine for gondolas.
Okay. How did you arrive at your cost estimates?
We just pull them out of the, back of a napkin. Okay, I'm joking. We pull them, we've got dozens of consulting reports, but also we've got hundreds of in-place gondola systems. So the costing has been laid out very clearly over a period of probably 30 years, 40 years of gondola construction operation.
Does that take into account that that construction in the U.S. always seems to be higher than
the
range else?
The range is from 12 million a mile to about 64 million a mile. We quote 64 because we're thinking of the outside limit with expensive stations, with a 3S system, and with Seattle. But the range generally is much less than that. Portland built a really over-engineered system that runs about a mile, and they spent $57 million on that. So we're estimating that we're going to run that price or less, but we could run a little more, and we're looking at 64 million as a really outside number.
Okay. What are the dangers if one of these fall from the sky?
One has never ever fallen from the sky. So I guess you could imagine whatever you want, but it doesn't happen.
Okay. Could you envision two lines, the second line located closer to White Center, for example, Southwest Cloverdale or Kenyon Street?
Actually, yeah, and Martin has got a slide to show.
We have, I mean, this is a map of the West Seattle Peninsula, of course, and we have looked at different alignments. We have also looked at the current 3 stations envisioned by Sound Transit, and also looked at the racial diversity in those areas. And you might see that the west side of West Seattle has the lowest diversity, and then gets a little higher in the Youngstown area, and then the very high areas in the northeast portion of it. And Sound Transit had looked at various alignments in prior studies. Current thinking is to run straight along the west side, but Sound Transit had also looked at doing alignment along Delridge or through South Park and Georgetown. This would be the most direct line, and if you take that, because ultimately the plan is beyond Sound Transit 3 to have a connection all the way to Renton. And so this would be the most direct way to get there. And so even if you build a gondola to serve the junction, you could also continue that light rail line through towards Renton, and then in South Park you could build another gondola line and go from South Park through White Center. You could even go as far as the Fauntleroy Ferry at that point. And in fact, if we were talking about multiple gondola alignments, you could even think about doing one from Georgetown through the South Seattle College to Delridge and High Point and the Morgan Junction, and serve all of the West Seattle peninsula that way. But let me also point out that Sound Transit 3 only has funding for those 3 locations. Everything beyond is right now just consideration and would require separate funding.
Okay. How will you meet the timing you envision with no EIS being done now to look at this option?
We have, I mean, because we're reusing the station locations, which Sound Transit already plans to use, things in the DEIS which concern, for example, bike access and walk access and bus access and so on would be the same whether you use light rail or gondola technology. Some of the details, of course, need to be specific. We have talked to engineering firms who can do what they call a feasibility study, where they lay out the specifics of the tower locations and the station locations and the station options and so on. And they promise that they can do that within 2 to 3 months. Because again, we are not talking, because we don't have to acquire nearly as much property, and the impact is not, I mean, gondolas are not as heavy, and so the soil conditions and so on, it's a lot easier. And so to do the planning is not as involved, and therefore we believe that we can do the planning within 2 years and the construction another 2 years. And so therefore we are pretty confident with the timeline.
I'd like to add a little comment there. That feasibility study would also include environmental and economic considerations, as well as right-of-way considerations, permitting.
It would also include carbon footprint considerations. There's a lot bigger carbon footprint in light rail with all the concrete that's being used than in gondola with just a few towers. And the energy consumption for gondola is significantly less than for light rail.
Been on this too, and that the feasibility study is surprisingly affordable. We've been quoted a number of $250,000 or less to complete a feasibility study. That's a very small amount of money, and so the reality is that we are reaching out, doing asks, and going to make that part of the conversation here in the near future to try to pull together that funding so that we could get that study done.
Let's see. Sorry, I kind of lost track in the chat here. So air rights, how will you address passing over very dense neighborhoods with the gondola passing 100 feet over people's houses? How will you account for the purchase of air rights? And I know that Marty answered that in the chat, but if I lived under this, what would I need to know right now about air rights?
I mean,
well, could you be more specific about what, because I think I know where the question came from, but I'm not sure what. Light rail has to purchase air rights. So it's going to be the same thing for gondola.
Okay.
In terms of the height and FAA issues, when post-Panamax cranes down at Harbor Island are at rest and the booms are up, they extend 400 feet in the air. We'll never we'll never have a tower anywhere near that height. So we're going to be fine with the FAA clearance. And actually, Martin, can you go back to the slide with passing through the neighborhood of the?
Yeah, let me talk to
ahead.
that. This is
Could you specifically address passing over the Pigeon Point neighborhood and then over 2 waterways? Because the light rail is not slated to go in that direction at all. So you're going over a very densely populated neighborhood that you have not addressed.
Okay. Let me talk about the whole path. First of all, we are trying to do the alignment as much as possible over existing right-of-ways, over existing roads. So in this case, Fauntleroy and then Genesee. And now how we get over Pigeon Point, that's a little bit up for discussion and during the feasibility study. But yes, there could be that we would choose to go over existing houses, and that would be up for Sound Transit. Sound Transit's position with light rail is that it just purchases and tears down those houses, whereas there is no need to tear any houses down, whether there is any type of compensation at that point and so on. That's a discussion with the city. We are not qualified to speak on behalf of how Sound Transit that would address. Now, then continuing on with the port, we already talked to the port, but there will be other potential other businesses and so on the way to Sodo. From Sodo, then going downtown. That's along the bus corridor probably. So that's existing right of way. But that ultimately is up for discussion at the time when the feasibility study comes in, and would be a discussion Sound Transit would have.
Martin, can I add a couple more comments? In that gondolas are very quiet. Light rail is not, so we're eliminating the noise impact. And then along Genesee, the light rail, one of the configurations would have it at 150 feet above the roadway along Genesee, and that would be quite an impact on the neighbors that are still there, the houses that remain. And put this in perspective, at 150 feet, that is higher than the high West Seattle Bridge. And that is in a residential neighborhood where you would have the noise of the trains. So there's some pluses and minuses to both technology, but I think when you weigh it out, and the 5 years of construction impact of light rail, because that's the time frame they figure from start to finish is 5 years, and displacement of homes, and during 5 years we have to get around that construction with our cars and buses. Aerial doesn't have that impact at all.
No, but at the same time, if you run a gondola across a very densely populated neighborhood, that's forever. You know, it's not just a very short period of time that you're inconveniencing somebody in the way that they drive. You now have a gondola passing over 100 feet over your head every 20 seconds, forever.
Well, you have a train running, screaming through your neighborhood every 15 minutes. So,
but it's not running over the top of it's not running over the top of people's houses.
Well, that sounds a little bit NIMBY, and that's okay.
Okay, now we're gonna.
You know, we have the people who are, tons of people who are opposed to light rail because they're going to lose their homes. And we've got people who are opposed to gondola because it's going to pass over their homes. So, you know, the question is, what are we trading off?
Yeah, I mean, there are about 100 houses in this neighborhood which would get affected and would have to be bought out and taken down, and all the other houses it will go up. I mean, at 150 feet high, and you will hear those trains for that whole area because it's high up in the air, and therefore noise travels really easily. Yeah, and the station going to be in 100 feet up in the air too.
Yeah, so either you're living next to a 150-foot concrete pylon, or you're living underneath a cable. So those are your choices.
I'd like to make a comment, having ridden on a number of gondola systems, and that is that 100 feet in the air is a little bit more than you would think it would be. You don't see a lot of things all that clearly. And also, my suspicion would be that people are going to be looking out, not down, especially if you're seated in the middle seat on some side. You don't easily look down. So I know that's not a lot of consolation, but that's my experience. And we get a lot of feedback from people who say, gosh, I wish I could stop my car, and take pictures of the views around here, but I can't when I'm driving. And I think one of the attractions of the gondola is it's a very peaceful, kind of beautiful ride where you can look out. I don't know how many people are going to be all that interested in looking down at rooftops.
Yeah, this is Michael. And I don't know whether this is the answer to our concerns or not, but as someone who can literally see my home in this graphic on the slide that's up here, the difference between having a cable going by 150 feet in the air and what is essentially what is it? What did we determine? 38 feet, 42 feet wide, solid bridge running 100 feet above my house. There's no question, at least on that aspect, in terms of view and sound, that a gondola would have a much less effect on the houses below than the light rail.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about people peeking out from the gondola towards houses underneath. They would probably rather enjoy the view of Mount Rainier and the Space Needle and the sound.
Okay, we do have a couple more questions. How have gondolas performed in earthquake-prone cities?
There are a lot of cities in South America which rely heavily on gondola systems. La Paz and Medellin and Caracas, and all those are along the fault line. All those are in seismic active regions. There are even in Japan, there are some gondola systems. Again, none of them have been affected by earthquakes. In fact, because gondola systems have been perfected in, for example, the Alps with high wind and so on, they are also kind of built to withstand activity, and therefore are built to counteract certain changes. That wire, for example, it looks pretty stable. It looks pretty static, but it's not. It's actually tensioned constantly by an extra counterweight or a hydraulic system.
Aerial systems have ability to flex an earthquake. And the question is, would a cement guideway be able to flex with an earthquake? So if you're comparing one to the other, the gondola probably has a much better ability to withstand a severe earthquake.
I might add, I don't know if anyone has ever seen offshore wind towers, but they're under constant pressure from tides. And that's the kind of strength that is built into the towers for the gondola. So basically it's a few towers spaced far apart, supporting a flexible cable versus many concrete towers spaced close together supporting a rigid guideway. So probably the widely spaced towers supporting a flexible cable are going to be better in an earthquake than rigid, closely spaced concrete towers supporting a rigid guideway.
Should there be a SEPA study?
Well, again, that I think will be determined by the study that we're asking everyone to urge the Sound Transit Board to approve a study so that we can get all these answers from experts in the field. And we've got 3 consulting firms that are ready to jump in as soon as that gets approved.
And I was wondering if the estimated cost includes maintenance facilities, since it would have to have its own completely separate system.
Okay, maintenance is kind of built into a gondola system. So one of the stations you dedicate as a maintenance facility, meaning build out a little further. And so yes, that is part of the plan. You do not need a separate, like with a light rail system or the streetcar. So you have separate operations and maintenance facilities. You don't need that for a gondola system. Okay. That also allows you to do certain maintenance during the day, which also saves cost. With light rail, you have to bring in all the trains at night and do all the maintenance at night. With a integrated maintenance system, you can take certain cabins out of operation during off times and clean them and maintain them and put them back into operation.
Okay. I don't see any more questions in the chat or raised hands. Oh, wait. Hold on.
Well, I've got one quick question. I know this technology exists, but I don't know if it's actually been implemented yet in any places. So my question for you guys is, I know you're looking at the 3 stations that Sound Transit planned for, and that the cars come offline and slow down in the stations for people to get in. So is part of that also the technology that would allow, so if I'm in the junction and I know I'm going all the way down to Soto to connect to light rail, is there a way for me to sort of tell the car that so that it would just continue on through and not sort of drift through the other 2 stations that are on the way?
Unfortunately not, because Michael, you have people, you might have 9 other people on the same train, in the same cabin, and some of them, somebody might want to get off in one of the mid stations, and so for every mid station, the cabin slows down for a brief moment so that people can hop off and more people get on, and then it continues on. This is proven technology.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Mexico City, for example, they built a very similar system with about the same distance, with about the same number of mid stations. In 2016, they have ever since people, they have taken about 6 million trips every year since, to great satisfaction. And so they are building 2 more lines as we speak. They will go up in operation next month. And the 4th line is already planned. So, and again, there are many other places around the world which have used these systems and set up these systems.
You know, I'd like to add a comment because I saw in the chat that somebody remarked something about, I'll bet this would attract tourists. And in Mexico City, what they found after implementing these systems was a couple of things. One is that even though it was meant primarily as a commuter line and going to neighborhoods that weren't seen as tourist destinations, they found that they had increased ridership, and it was 20% tourists. And the other thing that they discovered, which is a nice benefit that they weren't expecting, was that crime went down. That it was safer to take the gondola than it was to take a bus.
Oh, another one, a topic I didn't talk about is the House Bill 1304. Can I talk about that briefly?
Yeah, can you do that quickly, Martin, and then we'll wrap
very
up?
Quickly. House Bill 1304, the intent is for the monorail, the city set up some taxing authority, and Seattle Subway suggested to expand that to light rail essentially. And we are asking, we are talking to Representative Hackney, who is sponsoring this bill, to expand that also to aerial cable transportation. It's kind of implied already in the bill, and we are asking them to make it specific by changing 2 words. So if we could get some support from the West Seattle Transit Committee side, that would be great.
I know we've had a discussion as a board, and at the moment we've decided not to take any stand for or against this as a solution to light rail, but no. We're glad to have you guys here. And yes, HB 1304 isn't specific to aerial transit. So folks, this is something that could be used to apply to the existing light rail system to help Sound Transit implement that as well. And so folks can feel free to talk to our representatives, Joe Fitzgibbon, why am I forgetting your name? Eileen Cody, and our state senator, Joanne, about that, whether you think it should apply to this or to light rail. Certainly advocating for this just gives more financing options to Sound Transit as an agency in general.
Right. Yep.
So I want to thank Martin, Joyce, and Dennis, and then our own board member, Martin Westerman, who also was pinch hitting some of the questions there. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, if folks want more information or want to get involved, they have a website. Go check them out at westseattleskylink.org.
Thanks so much.
We've got about 7 minutes here. Which is fine. I don't believe we have any, I don't have any old business there. So unless I miss something, board members can let me know. I don't believe we have any new business coming up. If folks want to flag that over in the chat window or raise their hand. Otherwise, that gives us just a few minutes here to chat, open discussion. And so I'll keep us on the question that we asked sort of at the top. Are there things that you want to learn about in 2021? And if you want to take some time now to either add that into the chat window or raise your hand to share with us some of your thinking. Thank you, Martin, for sharing a direct link to HB 1304 there in the chat window if people are interested in checking that out further. Anybody have any thoughts or ideas they want to share with us. I shared earlier. I'm really hoping this year will be a chance, especially with all the detour stuff going on. We've wanted to kind of get an opportunity to sit down with one or more metro planners to really talk to them about like taking a good hard look at what are our existing routes, bus routes in West Seattle, especially some that went away in the last several years for financial or other reasons. And how do we look at not necessarily just bringing back the Route 22, or I think the 37 is completely shut down right now, I believe, right? But even before it shut down, I think it only had 2 or 3 runs in the morning and then 2 or 3 runs in the evening. And so not necessarily even just bringing back old routes, but are there ways that we can think about new routes that would better serve those neighborhoods and get higher ridership? And so I know that's one thing that I've been chatting with folks and pushing some of my fellow board members that I'd love us to try and get that as an option. Do other folks have some ideas like that?
Better service for Arbor Heights.
All right.
And I'm wondering where the that fellow that joined us last year to do a business shuttle between the business areas, Morgan Junction, Alaska Junction, Admiral Junction, we're working with Metro and the 21 to or the 50 or the 56 to make, or the 22 to make that happen.
Anybody have
COVID probably.
Anyone have speaker ideas? I know we've got a new general manager at Metro. We've got a new head of the state ferries, and it may surprise people to know we've had the previous state ferries director. We've also had a previous WashDOT director as guests, and so we may want to reach out to some of these folks and see about getting them in when the time is right to talk about different topics. But maybe there's something we haven't thought of.
I'd like to get Amazon in to talk about delivery vans or
drones.
Or what? Or drones, yeah. But
I'm waiting for my drone delivered pizza.
Yeah. I'm waiting to be able to just open a little door and have it right there, like a moment after I've ordered it. Well, Michael had the great idea of just ordering a new bridge from Amazon, and then we'd have the hybrid delivered by Monday.
If enough of us have Prime, maybe we can get it in one day.
It might be a heavy lift, but we can do it.
But then everybody gets one little part of it. You still have to assemble it. Yeah.
But I'd also like to explore transit as a service, the TAAS option that looks like it's on the horizon. I'm curious about TAAS.
And what's that acronym again?
Transit as a service. And it's I think it's self-driving human delivery vans.
Yes, I see a comment there from one of our board members, John Wright, who says maybe for last mile, which is how a lot of that technology, what that's aimed at, is serving those areas. Possibly that may be something that addresses some of the issues with the Route 37 or the Route 22, where there were concerns about, is there enough ridership? Well, maybe there needs to be an on-demand service for Arbor Heights folks that gets them down to Westwood Village or gets them down to the junction where they then connect with buses or, God willing, light rail one day, or a gondola. So yes, the more rapid transit and it's certainly things that are looked at in a lot of rural areas, but haven't really been explored fully in the urban environment.
Well, we've always been looking at since Ray Kruger was on the board several years ago, how to create a shuttle service or some access service within the peninsula to move people the business districts, to move people to educational centers, to how do we get ridership for that, and how do we staff that, and how do we keep the costs reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, Metro is testing the Via service in Columbia City and Othello area, where you can just order your ride to the light rail station and a bus picks you up.
It's similar to the Ride 2 service that they tried out here, I think. So I'm curious about whether probably Metro has no plan for that because they're strapped for cash right now.
Yeah, that would be way down the road based on my conversation with our my contact at Metro. I'm hoping to hear from him in the next couple of weeks about maybe coming to our meeting. That they're a little further along. I suspect waiting until the survey ends before they would feel like they'd want to reach out to organizations such as ours.
I noticed some complaints about the Metro on the blog about that Metro survey, that it had no room for comments.
I took the survey and wasn't pleased with it in any way, shape, or form. I felt
well, maybe we should get Metro
belong to a different city.
Maybe we should get Metro in here next month and quiz them.
I agree with you, Deb. I took the survey as well, and I felt it was really deficient, and I felt like they were they wanted to really specifically drive your responses without making it open-ended enough to get some real feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe I haven't taken it yet, so that's good. Maybe we need to, maybe we need to reach out to our contacts and chat with them a little bit more about that. We are at 8:32. So we should get wrapped up. If folks want to add some additional things there in the chat window, that'd be great. I dropped in the chat window, although it'll start moving up your screen there as more people add stuff. But if you'd like to reach out to us either by email or if you're on social media on Facebook, we have a Facebook page and we get into some discussions there as well. So come and join us and let us know. Otherwise, we will be back for Thursday next month with hopefully more really interesting topics and fabulous speakers for you to bring your questions to.
I just want to give a shout out to Deborah Franklin, who's coming to us from Charlotte, North Carolina. And they have a brand new streetcar there. So congratulations.
Yeah.
We are jealous. Not really.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right.
Or a second.
Second.
Yeah, Marty.
Oh, yeah.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you for joining us this evening, everyone, and we will see you in March.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Night. Happy February.